Good morning and welcome to a new YouTube series that I am calling La Vie Expat. My name is Tembi, also known as the New York City Gal Expat, and I thought it would be fun to share some of my experiences abroad prior to my meeting my husband. So I'm going to go back to the very beginning. I arrived in France for the second time. Actually, the first time was in 2015. I lived in Nice in 2015. Actually, let's start there. I lived in Nice in 2015 to 2016. And at that time, I became friends with the guy who was in charge of the local post, which was about 2 blocks away from me. And we became acquainted because I would go pick up my packages or whatnot and in large quantities. By the way, anyone who is thinking of moving abroad, please do yourself a favor and do not ship your items to yourself. If you cannot take those items, if you cannot afford to take those items with you on the plane, I assure you it is not worth the cost of shipping, even by the regular post, because what's going to happen is that when it arrives in France, it's going to be subject to import charges. It's going to be subject to all kinds of taxes. So why should you have to pay taxes on your personal items on top of the shipping costs? So I digress. So at the time, I became very good friends with, well, relatively good friends, acquaintances with the director of my local post. And it turns out first of all, he was the only person in the office who was fluent in English. So whenever I came in, he came out to assist me personally. Very real gentleman, as you might imagine, very well educated, very well traveled. And as it happens, he actually lived in the States because he studied in the States, so he loved being able to recount his experiences in America. So, he always looked forward to seeing me. So, as a result, he always told me that if I ever needed anything, let him know. And because he was so helpful, I mean, basically, all in all, we had lunch twice. Okay, in the whole year that I was living there. And at the time, when it came time for me to move, he was the first person I texted and said, listen, I need to move and I need an apartment. So please keep your ears open, keep your ears open. Let me know if you hear of anything. So he was very helpful. I would say about a week later, he texted me and said, "Oh, I just gave your telephone number to someone who says that they know of someone who has a place for rent. So you should be hearing from someone very shortly." About a week went by. I'm busy doing whatever I'm doing. And sure enough, I was at the post office and he asked me, he said, "Did you hear anything?" I said, "No, actually, I haven't heard anything, but I'm sure I will. I didn't think anything of it." And he gave that look like, So about 2 days later, that's where it gets good. I get a phone call from a woman who does not speak French. So naturally, I'm thinking that this is about the apartment, or that she got my name and telephone number from my friend, who shall remain nameless. So I heard my friend's name. She started going on, and I heard my friend's name, and I said, "Yes, he's a friend of mine." And she says to me, "No, I'm his wife." And I said, "Okay. Um, I'm thinking to myself, watch yourself. You're calling me, okay? Whatever's going on in your world has nothing to do with me. You don't know me, so step with care," was my position. But at the same time, in my head, I'm thinking, this man has been nothing but a gentleman. He's never mentioned a wife, doesn't wear a wedding ring or anything like that. So I had no indication that he was married, engaged, or whatever. That never even came up because that was not our interaction. But again, everyone has a different dynamic in their relationship, their marriage, whatever the case may be. So I had decided for myself that I did not, first of all, I didn't want to get involved in anybody's business. But at the same time, I did not want to make any unnecessary drama for him because he had only been helpful to me. So I basically just explained that he helped me get my bank account. He helped me establish a few things in France that is actually normally pretty, a little bit more complicated for foreigners. So she just said she understood her off the phone. Now, I have to admit, I played the I don't speak French card, which quite frankly was kind of true, kind of not true. I've always spoken a modicum of French, but not French to the degree of handling a woman who is calling me out of jealousy or a territory or whatever the case may be in her mind to protect her relationship, which quite frankly has absolutely nothing to do with me, but at the same time trying to step diplomatically on my end. So on that level, I, even to this day, I wouldn't necessarily say I have the right level of fluency. So about a week or so went by or whatever. Again, I'm at the post office. He comes out to see me and says, "Oh, we were talking or whatever." And I told him, "Oh yeah, I'm going to be moving. I found a place, da 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 da." And now, mind you, at the time, I'm talking to him and I'm thinking to myself, does he know what transpired? Is he aware? I don't know what the result of this was. I don't know how this went down. And I'm searching his face and his body language for any kind of indication that he is aware of this. And there was nothing. So I said to him, I just smiled and said, "Are you aware that your wife called me?" And I literally used the term wife. And he just said, "No, I was not." That was what he said to me. And I said to him, "Well, she did." And I told him, "Well, I kept it very polite. She said she understood the nature of our communication, although she didn't speak English, but she said she understood. She understood that there was nothing going on." And I explained to him, I said, "Well, understand something. I was nice, but if she calls me again, all bets are off. And you were the reason I was nice to her or polite. So essentially, don't let this happen again." And it did not. And he said, "Oh no, this will not be a problem." So he literally turned and walked into his office, with that sense of urgency or whatever. So it happens that we didn't speak again until I came back to the States, and we kept in contact just on WhatsApp or whatever or whatnot. And at the time, Donald Trump had just gotten elected for the first time. And he, like a lot of French people, were really shocked that that had actually transpired. They never thought it would be possible. So a lot of our communication was built on that, because he remembered my explaining to him that he had a very strong chance of winning, and he didn't believe me. So, anywho, when the time came for me to return, and I let him know, because he would let me know about different opportunities, work opportunities. He would ask me if I was planning on coming back or whatnot. Now, I told him, I said, "I am planning on coming back. I'm just not quite sure when and what that's going to look like." So when I announced that I was coming back, he quickly offered to help me find an apartment, because remember, that was the whole dynamic before. And I was so grateful, of course. Now, this man works in banking, and it turns out he was very, very helpful when it came to identifying the places that were not suitable for someone who does not drive, okay? Because at the time I was going to be enrolling in school, and I needed a place where I could walk to and from my apartment. So I needed someplace centrally located. He knew I was moving to Aix-en-Provence. But what was really, really helpful was the fact that he was able to identify scams and save me a lot of time and a lot of money. So finally, ultimately, through his cousin, I wound up finding a place in Aix-en-Provence, actually not a place, but a room, and that's another story. I guess I'll get to that in another time. So thanks for watching this video, and stay tuned for part 2.